Chapter 4 Shapeshifter. Once I went back through the broken windows into the school, I snuck around quietly, sticking to the walls to stay out of sight. I loudly whispered Corey and Steven's names so I could find out where they were. They couldn't have gone too far. I thought I was in the clear, so I started to say their names a little louder, but it turned out to be a bad idea because I attracted another thing. I quickly ran in the opposite direction, and I turned a corner super fast. With the small time that it couldn't see me, I struggled myself into a locker and hid inside of it. I couldn't really see well through the locker, and it didn't help that the hallway was almost pitch black. I heard the creature scatter slowly down the hallway, but even after a while, I couldn't tell if it was completely gone or not. I stayed in the cramped locker for what felt like forever. I stayed in there for a while just to make sure it was finally gone. Once I thought the coast was clear, I climbed out of it. When I got out of the locker, I started to smell something really horrid. It took me a minute, but I finally realized that all the other lockers were filled with dead people. I didn't want to be there any longer, so I made my way towards the gym. When I made it into the gym, I found a long trail of blood. I was guessing that it was when that big monster took Rodrick and his friend Drew. If that trail of blood leads to Rodrick and Drew, then that's most likely where I find both Steven and Corey. So I followed the blood down the school hallways until it led to the doorway to the staircase that leads down into the basement. Right before I took my first step down the stairs, I got another image in my head.
Don't continue.
It initially startled me a bit, but I tried to brush it off and continue. I completely forgot to call out Steven and Corey's names because of how scared I was, but it didn't matter anyway because I found them down there. Greg, you came back! I actually apologized to them, which surprised even me. It was probably the first time I've ever apologized to people in my whole life. I told them that I'll actually help them look for and save Rodrick and Drew, and they seemed happy about it. Steven told me they got distracted by some of the boxes that were laying around in the basement, and they found a few packs of walkie-talkies. They gave me one of the walkie-talkies, and I can't believe it, but it's the same brand as the Ladybug telephone. Ladybug walkie-talkie, perfect for kids and the elderly. I asked Corey how I used the thing, but he was too distracted with the other button it included. If you press this button, you can talk to Larry the Ladybug.
Howdy, I'm Larry the Ladybug. Wanna be my best friend?
Yeah! I was starting to regret coming back to them. After he actually showed me how it worked the right way, we continued walking down the dark and cold hallways of the unfamiliar basement. Moments later, we luckily ran into Rodrick. We asked if he was okay, even though he obviously wasn't. He was covered in sweat and blood. He was out of breath too. He looked like he just ran a marathon. I remembered Roderick's friend, Drew, and I asked him where he was and if he was still alive. Rodrick said no, and that he watched as Drew was eaten alive. When the monster was distracted eating Drew, he used that as his chance to slip away and run back. That's when I remembered something. I completely forgot about Rowley. Luckily, he showed up though. Hey guys, I'm glad you're all alright. What a crazy day. I noticed something was off about Rowley though. He wouldn't really be this cheerful in this situation, so I asked him about it. Rowley started smiling even wider. That's when his face started to melt. I realized it was not Rowley. We frantically ran as fast as we could to get away from the thing, but since none of us used the basement of the school, we all got split up from each other. Well, not completely split up. I was stuck with Rodrick, so I assumed Corey was with Steven. Rodrick and I hid behind a few boxes. I'm pretty sure the monster followed Steven's group and not us. I feel bad, but at least I was safe. We actually heard the monster roar from far away, so my assumption was right. But I realized something. The monster that took Rodrick and Drew looked different from the monster that we just saw. That's when I figured out that the monster was actually a shapeshifter. I was about to give up on Steven's group, but Steven actually started talking to me through the walkie-talkie. Greg, we're still alive! I asked him where they were, and he said that they found the boiler room. They explained to me their plan to lure the monster in there and then pour gasoline onto it to light it on fire. I told them that they couldn't do that. It's a death wish. But they turned off the walkie-talkie anyway. I couldn't let Corey and Steven just die, so I started running towards where the boiler room was, and Rodrick followed behind me. But before we even got to the boiler room, we ran into Corey almost immediately. I asked him where Steven was, and he told us that the monster ate Steven. But before he could continue, the monster caught up to us. The monster started eating Corey, and I shakingly pointed my flashlight at it. Something happened that I didn't expect. The monster screeched in pain when I pointed my flashlight at it. It dropped the remains of Corey's body, so Rodrick and I used this opportunity to run away. Rodrick and I ran into the bathrooms and hid in one of the bathroom stalls. I told Rodrick that I figured everything out. The monster got rid of the sun because light is their weakness. So inside the stall, we came up with a plan. At the end of the hallway, there's a generator on the wall. We'll go for it and pull the lever, turn on the lights, and kill the monster. Rodrick and I started to sneak out of the hallway, but we didn't go far because the ladybug walkie-talkie started to make noise.
Do you want to play a game with Larry the Ladybug?
That alerted the monster and it charged at us. This was our last and only hope of survival. Rodrick and I made a run for the generator. Halfway down the hallway, Rodrick tripped and fell down. The monster was getting closer to him, but I had to turn on the lights. I made it to the generator and pulled the lever. I turned around as the lights came on, and luckily, the monster didn't get to Rodrick. It was screaming in pure agony. That was the last time I got images in my head. The images finally faded from my head, and the monster fell to the floor. I walked over to Rodrick and helped him up. After we both made sure each of us were okay, we decided to leave the school since there was nothing for us here now. Before we left, Rodrick looked outside and mentioned that the sun was back. To get a better look, we quickly ran up to the roof of the school. That's when we saw the craziest thing ever. These spirit things were going into the sky and fading away. Rodrick then told me the smartest thing ever that I never even considered. His theory is that the giant shape-shifting monster we killed was the main one, and that one dying created a chain reaction and made all the others die too. Rodrick and I decided to just sit there and watch them fly away. We're not really sure what we were going to do next, but one thing is for sure. It's the dawn of the new world. The end.